Miss Brynn Jones, a junior at Murray High School, went to Sacramento and participated in the National Catholic Forensic League and came back with a national championship. And we invited Brynn to come and give her speech tonight that she gave out there. So Brynn, come forward and let us hear from a national champion.
Having a father who's an English professor is exactly as much fun as it sounds. When I tell my dad I need less corrections from him, he tells me that I need fewer corrections. When I ask him what he's trying to prove a point to, he tells me not to end my sentences and prepositions. He tries to teach me Latin to improve my English, but all I can remember is that the Latin word fundus means, among other things, butthole, and is the root of the word fundamental, so now I get in trouble for calculus, laughing when we talk about our fundamental theorems. And even though I know he's just trying to make sure I know how to speak proper English, linguistic elitism can be something that's very difficult to deal with. Can be something with which it is difficult to deal, especially in reference to the colloquialisms young people use every day. In 2011, University of New Hampshire sociologist Dr. David Finkelhor coined the term juvenoia, defining it as a fear or prejudice against the youth. Now, while I, as a young person, am extremely excited about the prospect of putting the fear of God into the hearts of my elders, the idea that the language of youth is inferior or a bastardization of real language is counterintuitive to the way we know language develops, and is a rather pointless attempt to maintain a power status quo. The way this is done is by labeling new words and phrases as slang. However, upon close examination, there isn't just a prodigious amount to be learned about slang, but there are massive sociological implications. This can best be observed through an analysis of where the state of neologism, or new words, has been, in a little hashtag throwback history lesson, where it is now, insert flame emojis here, and, most importantly, what we need to learn from it. There is no way to understand where you are without first understanding where you've been. So let's dive into, and dabble into, if you will, dabble. A little social lexicography. English is a language of evolution that has done so rapidly since its creation. In fact, without training, you can't understand Old English. This is the first line of Beowulf, written about 1,000 years ago. Well, we got them in Yeardagur. You may say to me, what an excellent example of Klingon, but I assure you that that is our language. It has simply evolved practically beyond recognition. And this change has always happened. According to John Algeo in his book, Origins and Development of the English Language, English has always picked up new words and phrases from whoever happened to be conquering England at the time. First, the Romans brought Latin, and then the Anglo-Saxons brought in this massive German vocabulary. This lasted until about 1066 when France won a war. After this, England had 3 major languages. They spoke Latin in church, French in the court, and everyone else spoke in English, the sort of German. Okay, here's one for you. A bishop, a duke, and a farmer walk into a bar. And none of them can understand each other. So England does what England does best and goes to war with France again for about 100 years. In the middle of the creatively named 100 Years' War, Chaucer wrote the Canterbury Tales. This is the first line of that. One that approved with his short sota the drop the march of passed to the rota. Right, you can kind of hear that one? Enter William Shakespeare. According to the book The Shakespeare Key by Charles Claude Shakespeare, coined approximately 1,700 new words and phrases. He changed nouns into verbs, he added prefixes and suffixes, and if a hater tries to copy your swagger, you've got a different will-I-am to thank for the word. After this, England began conquering the world. They took whatever they wanted from the conquered peoples there, including their languages. English has never been and never will be a stagnant language. This annoyed the elitists of the time, and it continues to annoy lexicon purists today. And this rate of growth is exponential. It's not just due to technology providing instantaneous global communication, though that is a factor. So, now that we understand the history of slang, we can better understand its current state. New words and phrases are created to fill a linguistic niche, so let's talk about a few of the new incorrect words and phrases that have fallen into use, like the gender-neutral they. Now, it's technically incorrect. English lacks a gender-neutral pronoun for a person of unspecified gender, so the word they has fallen into this gap. And while my English teacher, Miss Edminster, will always circle it in my essays, I refuse to let it go. It fills the awkwardness of saying he or she every single time. It doesn't invalidate or assume. It's a wonderful adaptation. There's also words like y'all. Now, I live in the South. I know that y'all is not new as far as the vernacular is concerned, but has been around for quite some time. Along with the gender-neutral pronoun, English also lacks a second-person plural, so some regions have adopted the word y'all in its stead, a phenomenon almost identical to that of Spanish, where only in Spain do they use the word vosotros, and everywhere else they use the second-person plural ustedes. Two languages so different in origin, both containing the same parallel. New words and phrases also often originate from the internet. The existence and daily use of the internet has shaped global language in phenomenal ways. Social media like Vine and Twitter originate words and phrases like fleek and ba Felicia. They catch on and spread within months until they pervade the English language. And yes, I am telling you that memes are an important and interesting part of language evolution. English is also full of shortenings. There are two types I'd like to talk about. The first is visible through the acronyms and initialisms that were popularized by AOL and text messaging, you know, like LOL, OMG, JK, IDK. And this is really interesting. According to the Smithsonian Institute, the first recorded usage of OMG we have is in a 1917 letter from Lord Fisher of England to Winston Churchill. But it's part of what's so interesting about English. You have whole words, phrases, connotations, all expressed through random assortments of letters. It's beautiful. English also has a lot of contractions like, take the word yaldov. Yaldov is technically a triple contraction, but I mean, y'all have done that if you paid attention in English. There's also words like fidna, meaning fixing to, but that's somewhere between a contraction and a portmanteau. That's another really great word, portmanteau. It is the technical term in English for where you take two words and smash them together. It's a huge source of words that enter the English language, like breakfast and lunch, brunch, iPod, broadcast, podcast, spoon, fork, spork. And this is really cool. It happened all the time in Old English, but they called it a kenning. The word in Old English for ocean is whale road. The word for graveyard is bone house. The portmanteau is an ever-present and beautiful facet of the English language. So that was a lot of words. But what does any of this mean? Well, I don't want to be a fundus, but we do have to delve into some of what we've learned from this analysis. Have you ever seen a salad spinner advertised on those weird 3 a.m. infomercials? You put the lettuce in the center and it spins and the water goes flying out? Well, even though he did not mention infomercial salad spinners, that's essentially what was said by Russian sociolinguist Mikhail Bakhtin. He said that the power of language in the center being the educated, the antiquated, and the powerful, when that is flung to the outside, it is placed into the hands of the many, and that can be very threatening. When my dad has to ask me what dab on that means, that's a shift in power. He has lost some of the authority associated with outdated language. And that's very threatening to a lot of people. And that's why slang is often looked down upon by others. People who are my age are often asked, what's wrong with your generation? They say that our language is ridiculous, that we are going to be the death of the English language. But as we've learned today, colloquialisms and neologisms aren't just a natural part of language evolution. They are practically an inevitable one. And this shaming of new language, the language of the youth, is the surest way to create a harmful and pointless sense of stigma. So we have to turn the can't word into the can word. We have to make elitist jargon, because this millennial is done with juvenoia and finna edutain y'all about the beauty in the neologism. Word.